Hello everybody, video here for you today. This is a no-cap recap of the January 26, 2022 Season 9, Episode 12 of The Curse of Oak Island called The Silver Liner. If you missed my recap of Episode 11, A Boatload of Clues, there's a link to it in the upper right. I've also done a live recap of Season 9, Episodes 1 through 11. That also includes a brief history of the money pit and the major finds on the island, and you can find that in my Oak Island playlist. Let's get into it. There's an island in the North Atlantic where people have been looking for an incredible treasure for more than 225 years. In the money pit area, the team is drilling a new borehole 2.5 feet from AB 13, called AB 13.5, which is 2.5 feet from AB 13. They again do not show a grid example of it, as they have all season except for last week. But again, your boys got your back on this. Here it is right there, and I think they went east. I think it's just a little bit east of this. The core samples so far are dense, undisturbed till, but they are still 30 feet above the airfield chamber depth. The team meets with Scott Clark, Oak Island researcher and 33rd degree Freemason. The 33rd degree is an honorary award bestowed on Scottish Rite Freemasons who have made major contributions to society or Freemasonry. Scott begins a PowerPoint presentation of the William Phipps Concepcion Oak Island theory. Phipps found silver in the wreck of the Spanish galleon Concepcion, and the theory is that some of it was, quote, secreted away, unquote, and hidden on Oak Island. The Concepcion was a 600-ton galleon that served as the premier ship for transporting plundered gold from the New World back to Spain. In 1641, while transporting over 100 tons of silver and gold, was sunk by a massive hurricane off the shores of Hispaniola, known today as the Dominican Republic. More than 40 years later, William Phipps, a politician and treasure hunter from the Massachusetts Bay Colony, began a salvage mission financed by British royalty. He found the ship and took over 34 tons of treasure to England. That haul would be worth over $15 million today. Phipps was given $2.7 million in today's money and also knighted for his efforts. Massachusetts wealthy merchant and Freemason, Captain Andrew Belcher, known for establishing cooperative relationships between colonists and indigenous tribe members, became Phipps' assistant. Scott's research shows that he helps Phipps with further salvage efforts on the Concepcion. This time, Phipps brought back to England just 1/20th of what he salvaged the first time, despite being gone for 8 months. Scott Clark also found a 1688 letter that Andrew Belcher was caught with one of Phipps' ships in the Mahone Bay area, which is where Oak Island is located. It goes on to say that they burnt the ship at Port La Barre, which is very close to Oak Island. This was the same time frame of Phipps returning to England with not as much treasure as expected. Scott also found a 1701 map drawn by a man that would include items learned from his merchant, seafaring, and intellectual friends on his maps. This section shows the location of the Concepcion wreck that Phipps found. Plate means silver, plate, coming from the plate, Spanish, and rack is an old term for wreck. In this section, in addition to Port Royal and La Have, which would be on any map of the area, a small island is labeled as La Plata, or La Plata, or the Silver. The map was drawn 94 years before Daniel McGinnis discovered the money pit. In case you're not aware, scientific evidence of a vast amount of silver was revealed in the Season 8 finale last year, and a similar amount of gold was proven in the season premiere this year. The evidence is trace amounts in parts per billion of water samples taken from various boreholes in the money pit area. Scott goes on to say that Captain Andrew Belcher had 20 ships, was very well connected, and his son was the first American-born Freemason. Many Masonic symbols are found on Oak Island, and many of the most prominent searchers were Freemasons, including Teddy Roosevelt, which descended from the medieval order of the Knights Templar. The team appreciates the theory because it ties historical people to locations, whereas most theories include people and locations but no ties between them. I did not switch to that graphic soon enough. I apologize. There's La Plata right there. There's La Havre, Port Royal, and you compare that to the current day map. Oak Island is right there. That dot right there. You can see how it's not quite shaped the same, the land masses, but there you go. Back in the money pit area, borehole AB 13.5 is a miss, despite being only 2.5 feet from AB 13, where the team discovered an air-filled cavity previously. The next borehole will be north, says Craig Tester. Metal detection expert Gary Drayton and brothers Peter and David Fernetti go to Lot 4, where there have been multiple finds of late during the search for evidence of the hatch on Zena Halpern's map. A tin can lid is the first item found, and Gary says they don't have to flag any trash. Gary then gets a hit on his metal detector, but no digging is needed. There is a piece of copper sheeting wedged between two rocks. Gary finds many items on the beaches of Oak Island every year as storms cause ocean items to wash up on shore, and beach erosion reveals other items. Gary thinks the copper sheeting was used on a boat, describing it as the duct tape of the day. He goes on to say that he has found such copper sheetings on Spanish galleons. Of course, he would say sheetings because he's English. Working in the swamp with Billy Gerhardt as the long-range excavation continues to try to unearth the ship-shaped anomaly found via seismic scanning in 2018, they find yet another piece of shaped wood. And another. Blacksmith Carmen Legg visits the research center to give his expert opinion on recent finds. He identifies the copper sheeting as part of a box for valuables, and says due to the primitive nature of the manufacturing that it could be from as far back as the 1100s. They often caption Carmen's segments due to his thick accent. Dating it back that far leads into narrator Robert Clotworthy recounting the two Zena Halpern maps that indicate multiple visits to Oak Island by the Knights Templar. Also mentioned are the stone road/wharf in the swamp that Dr. Ian Spooner dated as far back as the 1200s, and the 1300s lead cross found in Smith Cove. And tying it to the Phipps-Belcher theory, they could have been privy to Knights Templar information. Later in the research center, Marty Lagina meets with his partner Craig Tester and project manager Scott Barlow to draw out his theory on the air from AB-13. Marty thinks there would have been way more air if they intersected a chamber. Marty says the flood tunnel from Smith's Cove doesn't necessarily go in a line down to the money pit. It could have a small bump in it due to going over a big rock or any number of other reasons. The many boreholes drilled that could have intersected the flood tunnel would have likely introduced air, which would rise to the top and would get stuck in a bump like this one. The History Channel created this graphic of the same thing. He thinks borehole AB13 drilled right down into the theoretical air pocket right there. If it is a flood tunnel, perhaps they can block it before they put down those 4 10-foot steel line shafts and make exploration much easier. Back in the swamp, the team finds this piece of shaped wood. Gary says the square hole in the top would make it older, and that circular shanked fasteners started being used in the early 1700s. Marty and Rick arrive to tell the team there that although they have found a bunch of neat things there, they are wrapping up the swamp for the year. Marty explains that they need the swamp full of fresh water for the thousands of gallons of fresh water needed to run the wash plant that will clean the spoils of the digging for the 4 10-foot steel line shafts in the money pit. It would be illegal to use seawater. This is a still from the animation of the industrial-sized wash plant they will have. They are always on a tight schedule due to harsh winters on the island. They have dug only about 5% of the swamp, and every time they do, they have found interesting things. They will continue with the swamp, but it will have to be next year, which is now this year, 2022. They do have a few weeks to finish up in the swamp, so there could be still more finds on next week's show. Next time on an all-new The Curse of Oak Island episode called Go Big or Go Home, a borehole sample reveals wood, and they talk about carbon dating something, not necessarily that wood, and getting a time frame that is, quote, old. They start receiving the steel shaft pieces. They will sink in 4 places in the money pit area. And Marty ends the preview by saying there is definitely, without a doubt, gold down there. It's unknown if he's just referring to the water sample testing evidence or if there's some new corroborating evidence. Sorry. The next episode, season 9, episode 13 is Go Big or Go Home, and the synopsis reads as follows. As the team races to uncover the swamp secrets while they prepare for the biggest, most strategic drilling projects yet, they are shocked when they uncover a remarkable ancient artifact. I'll be back next week to recap that, episode 13. And a link to that recap episode will be in the upper right in this video once I post the episode 13 recap. Thank you so much for watching.